What if the gods never left us, but turned into dragons made of thunder and lightning? For centuries, the storm dragons slept beyond the clouds. But now, their wings split the sky. Their roars shake the earth, and kingdoms tremble before their return. Caught between prophecy, betrayal, and divine fury, one war will decide who truly rules the crown of storms, men or dragons. The skies over the kingdom of Vaindrul had always been stormy, but tonight the heavens themselves seemed ready to split apart. Bolts of white-blue lightning tore across the night, shaking the stone towers of the royal citadel. The people whispered in their homes, clutching candles, speaking the same words over and over. The storm dragons are awakening. Legends have foretold it, long before men built kingdoms. Before steel and crown, the sky had belonged to creatures of unfathomable might. The storm dragons, beings born of thunder cloud and lightning, strike ruled the heavens. Some claimed they were children of Thor, the Norse god of thunder, cast down to the mortal world after Ragnarok's first fire faded. Others believed they were living storms, given shape by the will of ancient gods long forgotten. But all agreed on one thing. When they awoke, war followed. The characters King Aldrich of Vaindrul, the weary but proud ruler of men, sworn to defend his kingdom from both mortal and divine threats. Lady Serafini, a sorceress descended from a bloodline that once worshipped the storm dragons, holding secrets no one fully trusts. Kel Ironfang, a warrior from the northern clans, wielding a war hammer said to be blessed by Thor himself. Erinder the Chronicler, a monk devoted to recording the truth, who may know more about prophecy than he admits. Veldrin, a rogue lightning dragon, scarred and bitter, exiled from his kin. Velora, a radiant queen among the storm dragons, whose wings shimmer with the brilliance of 1,000 strikes. Prince Dryas, heir to Vaindrul's throne, young, ambitious, and willing to forge forbidden alliances. The first storm citadel bell rang at midnight, its iron voice echoing across Vaindrul. In the highest chamber, King Aldrich stood by a great window, watching lightning rip the sky into jagged veins of light. He was not afraid of storms. He had fought wars, lost brothers, buried friends, but tonight felt different. Tonight, the storm watched him back. Lady Serafini entered, her dark cloak whispering against the marble floor. "Your Majesty," she said softly, her eyes glowing faintly with violet fire. "The omens are true. The dragons stir." Aldrich's jaw tightened. "I hope the old prophecies were lies." "They were never lies," Serafini replied, "only warnings ignored." Outside the citadel walls, thunder boomed so violently that the glass trembled, and then across the horizon the first shape appeared, massive wings, each the size of a castle's gate, and furled from the heart of the storm. The lightning did not strike it, the lightning was it. A colossal dragon of storm and light soared into view, its scales flickering like molten silver, its roar shaking the very air. Erinder the Chronicler fell to his knees in the chamber, clutching his scrolls. "It is written, when the sky burns, white and the earth trembles, the children of thunder return to claim their thrones. The exiled one far to the north, beyond mountain and frost, another dragon stirred. Veldrin, the scarred outcast, lay within a cavern of black stone. His scales were dulled, cracked from centuries of exile. He remembered Velora, his sister, his rival who had banished him after the last war of dragons. Now he felt the storm awaken. He felt her wings unfurl in the night, and in his bitterness, Veldrin whispered, "If she rises again, so shall I, and this time, sister, I will tear your crown of lightning from your head." The mortal war council be done. The citadel's great hall burned with candlelight. King Aldrich gathered his council. Kel Ironfang stood beside him, the northern warrior's hammer glowing faintly blue as if hungry for the storm. Prince Dryas sat near the throne, his eyes sharp, his ambition sharper. The sky is ours no longer, Aldrich said, voice heavy. The dragons claim it again, if they return in numbers. Our castles will crumble like sand. Then we fight. Kel roared, slamming his hammer against the floor, sending sparks across the stone. Thus blessing runs in my veins. I will strike them down. Erender frowned, shaking his head. You cannot strike down the storm, warrior. You can only weather it. Serafini raised a hand, her rings glinting. Not all dragons are enemies. Legends speak of bonds of mortals who rode lightning and shared blood with the stormman. Darius leaned forward, his voice low. If such bonds can be forged again, then we do not need to fight them, we need only choose which dragon to crown. The hall fell silent. Aldrich stared at his son, a shadow of unease on his face. Velora's throne high above the world. Within the storm itself, Velora stretched her wings and roared. Lightning crowned her head like a halo of burning stars. Other dragons stirred in the storm cloud abyss, lesser stormmen, waiting for our command. Her voice cracked across the sky like thunder. The age of men has gone too far. They build towers that claw at the heavens. They forge weapons that pierce even our hides. The pact of silence is broken. It is time we return. And the storm answered with applause of thunder. First clash 3 nights later. The storm moved south. Villages near the border burned not by fire, but by lightning itself. Men swore they saw wings cutting through the clouds. Crops blackened in the fields. Rivers boiled as bolts rained from the heavens. Kale Ironfang led a company of warriors to the river valley. They marched with steel, banners, and courage, but when the sky split open, their courage faltered. Velora herself descended, her roar louder than any horn of war. The clash was not battle, but slaughter. Shields melted, spears snapped. Kale alone stood against her, raising his hammer high, and when he struck, lightning struck with him for a heartbeat. Man and storm collided. Velora reeled not in defeat, but in recognition. She looked down at the mortal warrior with eyes like suns. You carry Thor's spark, she said, her voice both thunder and whisper. But sparks burn out. I am eternal. She vanished into the storm, leaving Kale alive but scarred, his hammer humming louder than ever before. Prophecy rewritten that night. Erender returned to his scrolls. His hand shook as he inked new words into the prophecy. Words that had never been written before. When dragon and mortal share thunder, the crown of storms will tremble. But even as he wrote, a shadow moved in the corner of the library. Prince. Darius stepped from the dock, his lips cold in a smile. You write of crowns, old man. Tell me, what if that crown belonged not to a dragon, but to a king? Erender froze, realizing the danger. But Darius had already made his choice. He would not bow to Velora, nor to his father. He would claim the storm for himself. The rain had not stopped for 3 days. The fields outside Vandrel drowned beneath blackened skies, and the peasants spoke of omens, horses refusing to leave their stables. Children waking in the night screaming of wings in the clouds. Shepherds finding their flocks struck dead by bolts from a clear horizon. The kingdom was suffocating beneath a storm that would not pass. King Aldrich sat in silence upon the throne, his crown crooked on weary temples. His knights stood restless along the marble hall. But it was the voices of his council that filled the air. They are testing us, said Lady Serafini, her gaze sharp, her fingers weaving subtle patterns of magic across the wooden table. Velora commands the sky, but she waits to see if we break before she strikes again. Kale Ironfang grunted, leaning forward on his warhammer. His armor still smelled of smoke and rain, his face lined with scars both new and old. Then let her come. I struck her once, and I'll strike her again. The spark answers when I call it. With enough warriors, with enough steel. We can drive her back into the storm. Seraphine's lips curved in a half-smile. You mistake survival for a victory. Thor himself fell in Ragnarok. Do you think his blessing alone can crown a mortal over the storm? Kale slammed his fist upon the table. Rattling goblets, I think. I am no coward hiding behind prophecies and whispers. Before their quarrel could ignite, Erinder the chronicler rose. His robes were damp, his scrolls heavy with ink. The old texts speak of this, he murmured, voice trembling. It is not by hammer nor spell alone that the storm may be bent. The pact must be made, man and dragon as one rider and stormbound. Only then can the crown of storms be claimed. The council chamber fell silent. Prince Darius leaned back in his chair, his dark eyes glimmering like steel beneath candlelight. And if that pact is forged, chronicler, who is it that wears this crown? The dragon or the man? Erinder hesitated. Both, for the bond is not of domination, but of unity. A cold smile touched the prince's lips. Unity was a word for fools. Crowns were meant to be seized. Not shared dot the first descent at night. Thunder rolled across the citadel like drums of war. Villagers lit torches in prayer as the clouds split open. Velora descended again, wings unfolding like rivers of fire. Her voice shook the stones of the city walls. People of Vaindrul, she roared, your king has forgotten the pact of old. The sky is not his to rule. Bow to me, and the storm will spare you. Resist, and your field shall wither. Your river shall boil. Your children shall choke on ash. The people screamed. Some falling to their knees in terror, others running. For cover, arrows flew from the ramparts, black against the night. But none reached her. They burned to cinders before touching her scales. From the citadel tower, Kale Ironfang emerged, hammer crackling with blue fire. He bellowed a challenge into the storm. Lightning answered him, striking his weapon in a torrent of white flame. For a moment, the sky itself seemed to divide. The dragon above, the warrior below, both crowned in thunder. Velora's eyes narrowed, recognition flaring in their depths. Again you stand, sparkborn. But know this, every strike that feeds you comes from me. You drink the thunder of my veins. Kale roared back, lifting his hammer high. But before he could leap into the fray, Seraphine's hand seized his arm. She had climbed the tower unseen, her cloak snapping in the storm wind. Do not be a fool, she hissed. One man cannot strike down a queen of storms. She toys with you. She wants to see if you will burn yourself out. But Kel's eyes were wild, his blood singing with thunder. He pulled free, stepping into the rain dot, and yet, before blow could meet blow, Velora wheeled upward, vanishing into the storm with a final roar. She had no need to kill him yet. Fear was a sharper blade than flame. Whispers of betrayal deep within the citadel. Prince Darius walked the shadowed halls. His boots echoed against stone as he descended to the old vaults where the air smelled of iron and forgotten blood. There he found Seraphine waiting, her violet eyes shimmering in the dark. You sent for me, Darius said coolly. She inclined her head. You are not your father. You see what he will not, that this kingdom cannot outlast the storm. And you would have me kneel to Velora? His tone was mocking, though his curiosity burned. I would have you crowned by a lightning, not crushed beneath it. Seraphine replied, the old texts speak true, the pact is not yet broken. A mortal may still bind a dragon, but only one with will strong enough to endure the storm without being consumed. Her gaze lingered on him, sharp as a blade. I believe that one is you. Darius said nothing. He did not trust the sorceress, but her words struck like flint against dry tinder. To ride a storm dragon, to command the skies themselves, that was a crown greater than his father's crumbling throne could ever give. And yet, in the far north, another crown stirred in darkness. The exile's flight Holdren spread his ruined wings for the first time in centuries. Pain lanced through his scarred body. But the storm welcomed him still, hissing in his veins, whispering revenge. He rose from his cavern, shaking mountains with the beat of his wings. Ice broke from cliffs, avalanches thundered into the valleys. The mortals below fled in terror, but Thaldrin cared nothing for them. His eyes burned with hatred, fixed on the horizon where Velora ruled the storm. "You cast me out, sister," he growled, lightning crawling across his jagged scales. "But now I return. This age will not be yours alone. The crown of storms will bleed before it rests upon your brow." And with a roar that split the heavens, he turned south. Fire in the citadel night after Velora's descent. Dread hung over Vaindrel like a pall, but fear soon turned to chaos. A bolt of lightning, sudden and furious, struck the citadel's eastern tower. Stone burst apart, flames leaping skyward. Soldiers rushed to contain the blaze, but it spread unnaturally fast, as if the fire itself were alive. Amid the chaos, Aldrich stumbled from his chambers, his crown slipping from his brow. "Where is Darius?" he demanded, coughing through the smoke. But the prince was nowhere to be found, and in the shadows of the burning halls, Seraphine's voice whispered to the storm, "The pact begins." The storm did not leave Vaindrel. For 7 days and nights it lingered, coiling like a serpent above the kingdom, refusing to move on. Crops withered in their fields. Rivers swelled and burst their banks, and people whispered of omens in every clap of thunder. In the citadel, King Aldrich grew pale and sleepless. His council fractured under the weight of fear. Caerleonfang sharpened his hammer daily, eager to challenge Velor once more. While Seraphine haunted the shadows of the castle, her eyes alight with secrets, but the most troubling absence was that of Prince Darius. He had vanished the night the eastern tower burned. The pact in the Shadow Sterius had not fled far, deep beneath the ruins of an abandoned monastery. He knelt in a circle of runes traced by Seraphine's hand. Candles hissed in the damp arrows. She chanted words older than the kingdom itself. "Do you understand what this means?" she asked, her voice like silk over steel. Darius met her gaze without fear. "It means the storm will no longer belong to dragons alone. It means I will rise where my father falls." Seraphine's lips curved. "Then you are ready." She raised a shard of crystal black, jagged, pulsing faintly with violet light. "This is the fang of Edfa, carved from the tooth of the first thunderdrake. With it, you may bind the storm to yourself, or be destroyed by it." Darius seized the shard without hesitation. Pain tore through him instantly, lightning ripping across his flesh, his veins glowing like molten silver. He screamed but did not let go. When it was done, the shard had vanished into his chest, leaving his heart beating with a sound like distant thunder. Seraphine looked upon him and whispered, almost reverently, "Stormburn, the battle of Blackwater." Fields while Darius forged his path. Caerleonfang marched with the king's army to meet Velora. Scouts had seen her descend upon Blackwater fields, where villages smoked and rivers hissed with boiling heat. The army advanced in tight ranks, banners snapping in the storm wind. Aldrich himself rode at the front. Though age bent his shoulders, he would not leave his people to face a queen of dragons alone. When the storm split open, Velora came. She descended like a goddess of wrath, her scales shimmering silver blue, her eyes twin suns. At her back came 3 lesser stormmen, younger dragons whose wings whipped the clouds into frenzy. "Hold!" Aldrich cried, his voice breaking across the field. "Hold for Vaindrel." Arrows loosed, ballista fired, but the storm swallowed them whole. Dragons wheeled and struck, lightning leaping from their bodies into mortal ranks. Men screamed. Steel melted, shields turned to slag. Kale roared, raising his hammer skyward. Thunder answered him. A bolt crashed into his weapon, and he hurled its fury into one of the lesser dragons. The beast shrieked and fell, smoking into the marsh-top the army cheered. But their victory was fleeting. Velora's gaze fell upon Kale. "You burn brighter than the others," she said, her voice echoing across the field. "But you burn still." She struck. Her lightning engulfed him, throwing Kale across the mud, armor shattered. Flesh-scorched, yet even broken, he rose to his knees, hammer still clenched in his hand. Veldrin's rival, and then the storm changed. From the north came a roar more terrible than thunder. The clouds split not with silver light, but with jagged darkness. Veldrin had arrived. His wings tore the heavens apart, his scarred body alight with fury. "Velora," he thundered, "sister, queen, pretender." The ground shook as he descended. Lightning of black fire trailing from his talons, villages crumbled, forests ignited. Even Velora turned her head, her storm-wreathed crown dimming at his approach. "Veldrin," she hissed, eyes narrowing, "I cast you down once. I will do so again." The dragons collided in midair. Lightning met lightning, silver against black, storm against storm. The sky itself seemed to scream as their roars split the clouds dot below. The battlefield froze. Men and soldiers alike stared upward, caught between terror and awe. Betrayal in the camp while the dragons tore the heavens apart. Chaos rippled through the king's camp. Torches sputtered. Soldiers fled, and in the confusion, Darius emerged. From the shadows, his veins glowed faintly, each beat of his heart pulsing with thunder. He strode into his father's tent, where Aldrich tried to rally the few commanders who had not fled. "Darius." The king cried in relief. "Thank the gods. You live? Come, stand with me, my son." But Darius did not embrace him. He drew the fangs lightning into his hands, eyes alight with unholy fire. "The gods you thank are gone. Father," he said, "the storm answers to me now." And before Aldrich could rise, the lightning struck. The crown shatters in that single moment. Vaindrel's fate shifted. The dragons battled in the heavens, their fury shattering the night. The army scattered across black water fields, torn apart by storm and flame, and within the king's tent. Betrayal bloomed like fire. The crown of Vaindrel fell to the mud, split into by lightning's hand, and above it all, the storm raged on. The battlefield at Blackwater Fields had become a graveyard of steel and fire. Smoke and ash rose into the storm-choked sky, where the titans clashed with fury so great the heavens themselves seemed to splinter. Velora blazed with silver blue brilliance, every beat of her wings scattering torrents of lightning. Valdrin met her with black fire and jagged thunder, his scarred body wreathed in darkness. When they struck, the air split, and men below were cast to the ground, as though the world itself rejected their battle. Each roar was an earthquake, each strike of their claws shattered stone. The storm dragons had not fought in centuries, yet their rage was undimmed. The fallen hammer amid the chaos, Kale Lionfang staggered across the field. His armor was broken, his skin scorched where Velora's. Lightning had torn him apart. Every breath was pain, but his grip on the hammer remained. He fell to one knee, pressing the weapon into the mud. Lightning hummed within it, alive, as if the storm itself awaited his choice. "Thor," he whispered, blood dripping from his lips. "If your spark lives in me, show me. Give me the strength to stand." The storm answered, not with words, but with fire. Lightning surged down into the hammer, into Kel's veins, burning him alive and remaking him in the same instant. His scream was swallowed by thunder, his body glowing with arcs of blue-white energy. When he rose, the mud steamed beneath his feet, His eyes glowed like molten steel. He was no longer merely Caoilfeng. He was a vessel of storm, the sorceress's hand far from the chaos. Serafini stood upon a hill overlooking the field. The storm coiled round her as though she commanded it. Her violet eyes burned as she raised her staff. Every word she spoke pulled threads of lightning tighter. She was not merely aiding Dryas, she was weaving the storm itself. Two crowns in the heavens, one shattered crown on the earth, she murmured. But there must be only one. Her lips curved. This war was no accident. She had nudged fate, pulled strings, awakened powers long forgotten. The prophecy had never belonged to men or dragons, it had always belonged to her bloodline. The princes rather than the shattered royal tent. The crown of Vaendrel still lay split in the mud. Darius stood above it, his chest still glowing with thunder from the fang of Eshvar. His father's body lay broken behind him, smoke rising from the wound where lightning had struck. But Darius did not grieve. He stepped into the storm, lifting his hands toward the battling dragons. The shard within his heart answered. Lightning surged from his veins, splitting the sky. Striking upward toward Velora herself, the Queen of Storms faltered, her wings stuttering, mid-beat as the bolt slammed into her side. For the first time, she shrieked in pain. Veldrin laughed, black fire rolling from his jaws. So the mortals learned to bite. Velora's eyes fled, her gaze locking upon the figure below. This power, it reeks of betrayal. Dryas grinned, his voice echoing with thunder not his own. I am no one's subject, not yours, not my father's. The storm bows to me now. Clash of storm-born Cael emerged from the ruin of the battlefield, lightning dancing across his skin, hammer burning brighter than ever before. He looked upon Dryas, upon the storm crackling from the young prince's veins, and felt dread coil in his stomach. You've cursed yourself. Boy, Cael growled, voice rough with power. You've bound yourself to something you cannot control. Dryas turned, lightning still crawling over his hands. Control is for kings. I will not control it, I will be it. Before Cael could strike, the sky split again. Velora and Veldrin crashed to earth, their impact tearing a crater into the fields. Soldiers were hurled from their feet. Earth itself ripped open, the two dragons, writhed and clawed. Lightning scorching the soul, black fire consuming everything in reach. Caught between them, Cael and Dryas stood, mortals made storm, their eyes alight with the fury of gods. The breaking of the Otherinda, the chronicler crawled from the wreckage of the camp, clutching his half-burned scrolls. His face was streaked with ash and blood, but his voice rose above the storm. Desperate and broken, the oath of storms. He cried. The pact that bound dragon and man together, it was forged to keep this from happening. Two storms cannot rule one sky. It will tear the world apart. But his words were drowned by thunder. Velora struck Thaldrin, her claws raking, across his scarred face. He answered with a blast of black lightning that shook the heavens. Cael's hammer roared, Darius's veins blazed, and Serafini whispered her spells into the storm. For storms raged at once, and the sky itself seemed to buckle. The fall of black water when dawn finally broke. Black water fields no longer existed. The villages, the river, the forests all were ash and ruin. Only a scar remained, a crater stretching for miles, still smoking with the echoes of divine fury. The people of Vaendrel who survived spoke of a night when the gods returned. When dragons and men alike became storms, when the world itself seemed to end. But the war was not over. In the distance, Velora and Veldrin both still lived, though battered and bloodied. Cael stood, transformed, his fate now bound to thunder. Darius vanished into the smoke with Serafini at his side, his heart still glowing with forbidden power, and Erenda, broken but breathing, wrote the words that none wished to hear. The crown of storms is no longer a prophecy. It is a curse upon us all. The world had not healed since the Battle of Blackwater. His scar stretched across the land where forests once grew, where rivers once ran. The sky above remained bruised and restless. Thunder whispering in the distance like a wound that would not close dot in this silence before the storm's return. The survivors waited. Farmers prayed to gods that no longer answered. Soldiers sharpened blades they knew would melt against dragon fire. Children dreamed of wings blotting out the sun. They all knew the war was not done. The gathering storm at the ruined cliffs of Carith, Wessie met shattered stone, for figures came to decide the fate of the world. Velora descended first, her scales gleaming even through her wounds. She moved with the majesty of a queen, her wings spread wide, her voice like thunder rolling across the sea. This world was forged in storm, she declared, and it shall return to storm. Men have played at kinship long enough. Thalrun rose from the blackened earth opposite her, scars burning like molten cracks in stone. His laughter shook the cliffs. You speak of rule, sister, as though the crown was yours alone. But I was storm before you banished me. Today, I tear your wings and claim the sky you stole. Between them stood Cale Ironfang, his hammer blazing with the fire of the spark. Lightning rippled across his body, his eyes glowing like molten silver. His voice carried not as a man's, but as one chosen by storm. This war is not yours alone, he said. If dragons claim the sky and men bow their heads, then all hope burns. But I will not bow. I will fight for every soul still clinging to this earth. And then came Darius. He emerged from the shadows of broken towers, Serafini at his side, his chest still glowing with the fang's cursed power. His face was carved with ambition, his veins humming with unnatural thunder. You are all fools, he said, lightning sparking at his fingertips. You fight for crowns already broken. The storm does not share it obeys strength, and I am stronger than all of you. The storm above trembled, sensing what was to come. Serafine's betrayal before the clash began. Serafini stepped forward, staff raised. Her voice rose like a hymn, ancient and terrible. By the blood of my ancestors, by the pact forsaken, I call upon the first storm. Let the crown be forged anew, and let it rest upon the one I choose. Her spell split the sky, lightning raining in spirals, the prophecy itself bent toward her will. The dragons roared, Cale staggered. Even Darius clutched his chest as the fang within him burned hotter. You planned this, Darius gasped, turning to her. Not for me, for yourself. Serafini smiled, her eyes alive with madness. The crown of storms belongs to my line. You were only ever a vessel. But before her spell could complete, Velora struck. A bolt of pure silver lightning obliterated the cliff where Serafini stood. Her scream vanished into smoke. Her staff shattering into ash, the storm released its hold and the final battle began. War of for Velora and Thaldrin tore into one another, wings snapping, claws raking, lightning and black fire colliding with force enough to split the sea itself. Waves crashed against the cliffs. Mountains shuddered. Cale leapt between them, hammer blazing, striking Thaldrin across the jaw with a thunderous crack that sent the exile sprawling. Darius unleashed the fangs, power, lightning exploding from his chest in a storm that wrapped round Velora. She shrieked as her wings faltered, the mortal's forbidden lightning chaining even a queen of storms. For a heartbeat, Darius laughed, raising his hands as though to seize the sky itself. The storm is mine, he roared, but Cale saw the truther. Fang was consuming him, hollowing him into nothing but storm. His veins glowed too brightly, his flesh cracking like glass. Darius, Cale bellowed, it will kill you. I will be more than a king, the prince answered, voice distorted, inhuman. I will be eternal. The last strike Thaldrin, broken but unbowed, rose again, with a roar of hatred. He hurled himself at Velora one final time. jaws clamping. Upon her throat, she screamed, lightning flooding the sky, and for a moment it seemed he might finally tear her down. But Kale charged, hammer blazing, and struck Thaldrun square in the chest. The exile shrieked, black lightning bursting from his body as he was hurled into the sea below, swallowed by waves and fire. Valora staggered, barely able to rise. She looked down at Kale, her eyes fierce but weary. "You bear Thurspark," she whispered. "Perhaps the storm remembers more mercy than I." Then her gaze turned upon Darius. The prince was no longer entirely human. His body cracked with lightning, his form dissolving into storm itself. The fang of Eshva had devoured him, leaving nothing but hunger and rage. Kale raised his hammer one last time. "Forgive me, prince. This is the only way," with a roar that shook heaven and earth. He brought the hammer down. Lightning met lightning, and Darius's form shattered, exploding into a pillar of thunder that lit the world for miles. When it faded, nothing of him remained but silence, the crown of storms. When the storm at last broke, the skies cleared for the first time in months. Sunlight pierced the clouds, falling upon the shattered cliffs and the sea beyond. Valora rose, battered, scarred, but alive. She looked down at Kale, who stood with his hammer buried in the earth, his body trembling, his strength nearly gone. "You fought as a dragon fights," she said. "Not as prey, not as slave. Perhaps this world is not only ours to rule." She spread her wings, lifting into the sky, leaving the broken land behind. Erna, who had survived against odds, crawled to his knees and dipped his quill into blood and ash. His hand shook as he wrote the final words of the prophecy. "The crown of storms is not worn by dragon nor by king, but by those who carry thunder in their hearts and rise even when the storm would break them." Kale fell to his knees, the hammer flickering one last time before falling silent. The war was over, but the storm would never truly be gone. Epilogue legends spread of that night on the cliffs of Carith. Some said the dragons vanished forever. Others swore they still circled the skies, watching, waiting. But all remember the man who stood against gods, the prince consumed by his own hunger, the queen who yielded her wrath, and the exile swallowed by the sea. And when thunder rolled in the distance, every child of Angel whispered the same words. "The storm remembers."